Caution. The AJ and Quill show contains D&D content and is intended for a D&D audience. And, besides that, they're really weird. Hi everyone, welcome to Total Party Quill. I'm your friendly neighborhood tiefling, AJ. This is my buddy and fearless companion, Quill the Dragon.
Greetings everyone. I hope you're having a marvelous day.
Recently, Wizards of the Coast announced they're going to be releasing a new adventure campaign called Icewind Dale: Rime of the Frostmaiden. And to get everybody ready for that, we're going to be covering monster tactics for creatures that we're pretty sure you're going to find inside that adventure. But let's not waste any time. You got questions, we got answers. Let's headbutt.
So what are we covering today?
Question. What do you get when you cross a centipede with a curling iron?
The makings of an awesome bachelorette party for bugs?
Close! Actually, you're going to get a Remoras. And that's the creature we're covering today. Remoras are iconic Dungeons & Dragons creatures, and they've been around since Dragon issue number 2 back in 1976.
And they've appeared in every edition of Dungeons & Dragons since.
Now, Remoras are a CR11 huge monstrosity, and they appear on page 258 of the 5th edition Monster Manual.
Remoras have 17 D12 hit points and an armor class of 17.
They also have a walking speed of 30 feet and a burrowing speed of 20 feet.
Remoras are immune to fire and cold,
which is unusual because you don't usually see those combined on one creature. They also have dark vision and tremor sense out to 60 feet.
For attacks, Remoras has a bite attack, which automatically grapples any creature that it hits.
They also have a special secondary attack that they can do against a grappled creature where they're able to swallow it whole. Now, a Remoras has really high strength and constitution, but a much lower dexterity. This is the physical profile of a melee tank. It's a creature that gets into combat, starts hitting with its attack, and doesn't really move around all that much. They're interesting and robust creatures. But let's dive into the lore a little bit to try to explain why these stats.
Hey, are you covering me with the stats thing again?
No, we would never do that. Now, Remoras is a massive insect, hence the monstrosity classification. They're described as being about 5 feet wide and 25 to 30 feet long, making them a huge creature.
Remoras are heavily armored with a thick chitin and has rows of special heat-producing spines running down its back. A Remora's carapace is actually completely immune to fire.
And it uses this fire immunity of its carapace, coupled with the ability it has to generate its own intense external heat, to give it immunity to cold damage as well. You can also see this heat-generating characteristic of the Remoras represented in its heated body characteristic. Now, we say an intense external heat because it doesn't actually generate this heat inside its body. Now, the information says that it generates this furnace-like heat from within, but it doesn't actually increase its internal temperature. The heat manifests out of the spines that run down along its spine. And you can see this represented in that when you're swallowed by a Remoras, you don't take any heat damage. It's not hot on the inside.
Now, a Remoras looks like a blend between a giant centipede and a cobra. Now, as for why it has these external spines, the lore says that it uses them for defense as well as to keep them adapted to the cold environments.
The lore also says that this heat-generating ability helps them burrow through the ice, which is why they have a burrowing speed. The intense heat their body produces melts the ice as they dig through it, forming tunnels.
How structurally safe these tunnels are is up for debate.
Now, the importance of these heat-generating spines and the tunnels they make is important because of where they live. Remoras only exist in Arctic environments because they're adapted to the cold and they can't handle the heat very well.
Although for fun, you can certainly make a Remoras that exists in a desert, just to keep things interesting for your players.
And even though a Remoras profiles as a melee tank with its high strength and constitution, they're described much more as ambush predators. Remoras have a higher intelligence and wisdom than you would expect from a simple beast. And their lack of a perception skill indicates that they're not active hunters. They don't go hunting for their food.
They're more of a sit-and-wait predator, much like a spider.
Right, they'll sit around inside their tunnels below the surface, waiting for unsuspecting prey to walk into their territory.
Or their danger zone.
And because of their high wisdom, not only would they react to sensory stimulus like somebody touching them or coming really close to them, they're wise enough to be able to set up a plan of attack.
This could include following creatures that they notice in their area until they stop for a rest. Or it could mean getting ahead of them, and making a trap in the snow to ambush them.
Kind of like the sandworms in Dune, or if you ever watched that Kevin Bacon movie Tremors, those things.
Minus the mouth snakes.
Now, something in the lore that we found interesting was that frost giants love remoras. They're like dogs for them.
Frost giants are known to capture young remoras. Remorai? More than one remoras. And train them as attack dogs and hunting animals.
But now that we've covered the lore, how does this all fit together? How do they behave in combat?
As we discussed, a remoras is a sit-and-wait predator, wanting to ambush its prey.
Right, so that means that a remoras is going to sit in its tunnels below the surface waiting for creatures to come within its 60-foot tremor sense. Now, why do we say 10 feet below the surface? Because its movement when burrowing is 20, and it would need to get at least 10 feet of its body out of the hole to be able to use its bite attack properly, because the bite attack has a reach of 10 feet.
You're certainly allowed to make this distance underneath the surface it's lying in wait bigger or smaller.
Now, remoras doesn't actually have a stealth proficiency, but since it's underneath the earth, it doesn't actually need one, because unless the characters can see into the ground somehow, they're not going to be able to notice it.
Once a creature is within range of its attack, a remoras will burst forth from the ground and attack.
And in doing so would cause surprise against whatever it's attacking. Now, using its 60-foot tremor sense, whenever a creature gets within attack range of the remoras, it will burst forth from the ground and attack using its bite.
In the first round, everyone is surprised by the remoras.
Right, but if you want to be nice as a DM, you could rule that anybody with a passive perception of 16 or higher isn't surprised during the first round. It's representing that their awareness of their surroundings is high enough that they would notice the remoras bursting from the ground and wouldn't be surprised on that first round, whereas a character with a lower perception or passive perception would be. Wait a sec, that's right, not everybody knows what the surprise entails anymore, because it's changed from editions. So let's get a little meta-adjacent and explain what surprise means.
Oh yes, the surprise condition. Unlike previous editions, there is no surprise round. Surprise is a condition that is imposed on creatures during the first round of combat. Now the Dungeon Master will determine surprise, usually pinning one side's stealth check versus the other side's perception check. But ultimately is left up to the DM to determine which side, if any, is in fact surprised. Now, if you are surprised, treat it like a condition that applies to your character on the first round of combat. A surprised creature cannot move, nor take any actions in the first round of combat. Also, they cannot take any reactions until after that first round. Now remember that one member of a party can be surprised even if other members are not.
Now it's important to remember from that there is no surprised round. Surprise is kind of like a condition that a character suffers in the first round of combat. But an actual surprise round no longer exists in 5th edition.
In combat, a remoras' attacks revolve around its bite-swallow combo.
But this combo has to be done over 2 rounds because a remoras only gets 1 attack per round.
A creature successfully hit by the bite attack of a remoras is automatically grappled.
And if you want to learn more about the grapple condition, you can check out our other video covering the Glabrezu, here, I think? Check out that link.
Now, the bite damage also has a heat damage included. This is to represent the intense heat of the creature's carapace, so you don't need to add the heat damage twice.
And it's important to note that because the actual heated body ability the creature has doesn't cover if the remoras touches another creature, only if that creature touches it or if it attempts to grapple or hit it with a melee attack.
When a remoras has a creature grappled in its mouth, it cannot use its bite attack against any other creature, but it can attempt to swallow a medium or smaller creature.
Now that's important to know because it couldn't actually swallow, say, a grizzly bear or a horse, but a medium-sized humanoid or smaller than that, no problem.
To swallow a creature, a remoras has to make a second bite attack against it. If the attack hits, then the creature takes the bite damage and is considered swallowed.
Now, a creature that has been swallowed is both blinded and restrained. It's important to think about this because the blinded condition isn't countered by dark vision. This is more of a, you can't open your eyes inside the stomach because you're surrounded by acid blindness. A creature that has been swallowed also has total cover against outside effects or spells that could target it. And at the beginning of the Remorhaz turn, a swallowed creature takes 6d6 acid damage. Supposed to be representing the stomach acid trying to dissolve it away.
Escaping a Remorhaz's stomach is quite difficult. There are only a few ways it can be accomplished.
Now, the first way that you can escape from being swallowed is to do 30 hit points of damage to the Remorhaz from the inside in one turn.
That's one turn, not round.
Now, if you remember, we said that a creature inside the Remorhaz's stomach is both blinded and restrained. These conditions impose disadvantage on its melee attacks, and it's important to keep track of that while it's swallowed if it's trying to do damage to escape.
If a creature is able to do 30 points of damage to the inside of the Remorhaz on its turn, the Remorhaz then must succeed a DC 15 Constitution saving throw at the end of that turn.
Now, based on its Constitution score, this gives it roughly a 50% chance of passing or failing that check.
Failing the check means the Remorhaz regurgitates any victims it has swallowed into a space within 10 feet of it. The creatures land prone.
Now, multiple swallowed creatures can combine their turns using the hold action to try to capitalize on everybody doing their damage inside of one turn to try to make that 30 hit point threshold.
Hopefully they don't hit each other since they're swinging blind inside the stomach. Now, how many creatures can fit inside a Remorhaz's stomach?
We don't know. It doesn't actually say how many creatures it can swallow. But going by its size as a huge creature, we're going to say about 4 medium-sized creatures can fit into a Remorhaz's stomach. But that would be the maximum.
Now, if the swallow attempt fails, the creature is still grappled by the Remorhaz, and the Remorhaz can attempt to make that swallow attack again on its next turn.
And this is how Remorhaz's turns are basically going to play out. The logic in a Remorhaz is, do I have food in my mouth? No? Okay, bite something. Yes? Okay, try to swallow it. And it'll keep doing this pattern over and over again.
The second way to escape from a Remorhaz is to simply kill the creature. When a Remorhaz dies, the creature is no longer restrained, and it can use 15 feet of its movement to escape.
Now we're going to assume that you're going to be crawling out the mouth, but you never know. Some people might decide to go south instead of north.
The last way to escape from a Remorhaz would be to use teleportation magic that doesn't require line of sight.
Right, like Dimension Door. Now, Remorhaz are living creatures, and they want to keep on living, which means that once they reach 1/4 of their hit points, we're going to say that they suffer a morale failure and flee combat.
That's approximately 50 hit points remaining.
And when it flees, it will simply burrow back into the ice and run away.
This is particularly nasty for any of your players who happen to be swallowed at that point.
To make things less character deathy, we're going to say that when the Remorhaz flees, it does leave a temporary tunnel behind it as it burrows away. That'll be about 5 feet wide and that any medium-sized character can follow.
Now remember, this is a melted tunnel that the Remorhaz created in the ice. It will absolutely count as difficult terrain.
Right, but difficult terrain for any characters pursuing the Remorhaz, not for the Remorhaz itself. Its burrow speed still remains 20. I think it would also be safe to say that these tunnels, because they're not well constructed, would eventually collapse, and if you wait too long, you won't be able to follow them. But as the DM, this is up to your discretion. And that's basically combat for the Remorhaz. They're not complicated creatures. It bursts from the ice, surprising creatures if it can. It bites somebody, and if it's already bitten somebody, it's going to try and swallow them. It's going to flee from combat once it's been reduced to 1/4 of its hit points, or if it's killed all the creatures, or if it has 4 creatures swallowed inside its stomach, because then it would be full and there's no reason to stick around anymore.
They certainly don't hate to eat and run.
And that's it. Hopefully this is enough to get you started using a Remorhaz inside your player encounters for the upcoming adventure Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. They're fun and interesting creatures, and I don't think they get used enough, so hopefully you have a good time playing with them. And with that, let's get to Quill's joke of the day. Quill?
What's worse than an alligator with a toothache?
I don't know. What is worse than an alligator with a toothache?
A Remorhaz with athlete's foot.
Anyway, don't forget to tune in next week when our special guest will be Miss Laura Bailey and her wonderful companion Trinket as we cover bears of all varieties that you'll encounter in the Arctic.
She's a wonderful lady.
and a terrific actress. And we'd like to offer our most humble apologies to the wonderful Miss Lauren Urban and Jen Kritchmer. Sorry ladies, we wanted to have you on the air today, we just ran out of time. And that's about it. We hope to see you next time. Bye!
Bye!